11 Golden Age stars who vanished and were never seen again. They dazzled millions on the silver screen, then vanished without a trace. Some walked away on their own terms. Others were pushed, blacklisted, or destroyed by the very system that created them. And some met fates so dark that Hollywood pretended they never existed. These are 11 stars who disappeared so completely that even their fans never knew what became of them. The legendary recluse, Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo didn't just leave Hollywood. She engineered the most famous disappearing act in entertainment history. At 36 years old, at the absolute peak of her powers, Garbo simply stopped. She walked away from one of the most successful careers in cinema and never looked back. Most stars fade out gradually as their appeal diminishes. Not Garbo. She quit at the top, turning her back on millions through pure personal choice. But retirement was just the beginning. She refused everything. No interviews about her legendary career, no retrospectives or tributes, no authorized biographies, no occasional appearances at industry events. Nothing. For someone who had been one of the most photographed women on Earth, this level of refusal required almost superhuman commitment. Garbo spent the rest of her life in near total isolation in New York City. She walked the streets daily, but developed careful strategies to avoid recognition. A small circle of trusted friends, strategic avoidance of photographers, complete severance from her industry past. When she said, "I want to be alone," she meant it. For over 4 decades, Garbo maintained this extraordinary disappearance, consistently turning down financial opportunities to preserve the privacy she valued above fame. She didn't fade away. She vanished deliberately. But at least Garbo chose her disappearance. Our next star wasn't so lucky. The unsolved mystery, Jean Spangler. Jean Spangler didn't just disappear from Hollywood. She disappeared. Period. This wasn't a career fade-out or voluntary retirement. This was a complete physical vanishing that remains unsolved to this day. Spangler was a working actress in the late 1940s, building real momentum with small roles in films like Young Man with a Horn. Not a major star yet, but climbing that ladder with steady work. Then one day in October 1949, she walked off a studio lot and into one of Hollywood's darkest mysteries. Her purse was found near Griffith Park with a cryptic note inside. The message was addressed to someone called Kirk and mentioned Dr. Scott, saying she couldn't wait any longer and that it will work best this way while Mother is away. That incomplete, mysterious note raised more questions than it answered. What was she waiting for? Who was Dr. Scott? The investigation focused on one particularly explosive possibility. Spangler had recently worked with Kirk Douglas on a film. Could the note have been meant for him? Douglas acknowledged knowing her, but denied any significant relationship. Investigators found nothing concrete to pursue that angle, but the speculation never died. The proximity to Hollywood power fed persistent rumors about whether industry connections might have influenced the investigation. Jean Spangler was never seen again. Her fate remains completely unknown over 7 decades later. No body was ever found. No credible sightings emerged. She walked into darkness and nobody ever found out why. While Spangler's disappearance remains a mystery, our next star's exit was deliberate and shocking. The spiritual transformation, Dolores Hart. Dolores Hart didn't just leave Hollywood. She left the material world entirely. In the late 1950s, Hart was exactly where every young actress dreamed of being. She'd kissed Elvis Presley on screen in Loving You, starred in 10 successful films by her early 20s, and was being positioned for major stardom. The studio machine was behind her, the roles were getting bigger, and everything pointed toward a long, lucrative career. Then, at 24 years old, Hart made a choice that stunned Hollywood. She walked away from everything, not for another studio, not for a better contract, not even for marriage. She became a Benedictine nun. This wasn't just a career change, it was a complete rejection of everything Hollywood represented: fame, wealth, visibility, luxury. She traded it all for poverty, anonymity, and service. The industry couldn't comprehend it. How do you walk away from Elvis, from stardom, from millions of dollars? But Hart's commitment wasn't temporary rebellion. She meant it. Over 6 decades later, she's still there, still serving as prioress at the Abbey of Regina Laudis in Connecticut. She exchanged the spotlight for candlelight, red carpets for prayer. Hart chose faith over fame and never looked back. But some stars had their choices taken away. The uncompromising vision, Barbara Loden. Barbara Loden didn't just leave Hollywood. Hollywood made sure she couldn't come back. In 1970, Loden accomplished something extraordinary. She wrote, directed, and starred in Wanda, a raw, unflinching indie film that won the International Critics Prize at the Venice Film Festival. For a female director in an era when women behind the camera were virtually non-existent, this should have been a breakthrough moment. Instead, it became her ending. Wanda was everything Hollywood hated: stark, unsentimental, uncomfortable. It followed a passive, disconnected woman drifting through Pennsylvania coal country with no redemptive arc, no happy ending, no commercial compromise. The film violated every assumption about what female-centered stories should be, especially coming from a woman director. Rumors suggest she was blackballed for being too real, too raw, too unwilling to play by their rules. After creating this masterpiece, Loden essentially vanished from film. She kept working in theater and teaching acting, but as far as the film industry was concerned, she might as well have been dead. No more directing opportunities, no studio backing. When cancer took her life in 1980, at just 48 years old, her disappearance became permanent. She died before witnessing the rediscovery of Wanda by later generations. She made a masterpiece, then vanished like she was never here. Our next star met an even darker fate: the violent end, Carl Alfalfa Switzer. Switzer was America's favorite freckle-faced kid. That distinctive cowlick, the off-key singing, the lovable persona in Our Gang and Little Rascals made him one of the most recognized child stars of the 1930s. He appeared in over 100 shorts that played in theaters across the country, his face known to millions of families. But here's the twisted reality. Despite all those appearances, despite the shorts making substantial profits through endless reruns, Switzer received minimal compensation and absolutely no residual payments. The studios made millions off his face. He got almost nothing. By the 1950s, childhood fame had become a distant memory. Switzer was scraping by doing stunt work and training dogs. Financial desperation defined his adult years. In 1959, that desperation led to a confrontation over money Switzer believed he was owed for returning a lost dog. The dispute escalated. Shots were fired. Switzer, just 31 years old, died in a pool of blood. The man who shot him claimed self-defense. Police called it justified. The investigation closed quickly, conflicting witness reports brushed aside. What's most disturbing isn't just the violence of Switzer's death, but how little anyone seemed to care. Minimal media coverage despite his childhood fame. No public outcry. The beloved child star who'd brought joy to millions died in violence and silence. Our next star's decline was slow and agonizing. The quiet tragedy. Gail Russell. Gail Russell didn't leave Hollywood. Hollywood left her to die alone. In the 1940s, Russell was one of Paramount's most promising talents. Stunning beauty combined with natural, vulnerable screen presence in films like The Uninvited and Angel and the Bad Man made her an instant audience favorite. But behind that ethereal beauty lurked a crippling secret. Russell suffered from debilitating stage fright that made every single day of filming absolute torture. The anxiety wasn't just nervousness, It was psychological terror that made performing nearly impossible, despite her obvious talent. To cope, Russell started drinking. The alcohol temporarily calmed her nerves enough to get through scenes, but it created a dependency that would destroy everything. As her alcoholism progressed, her career entered freefall. Her appearance deteriorated, her reliability vanished, and studio support evaporated overnight. By the late 1950s, Russell had disappeared from public consciousness entirely. Still living in Los Angeles, but so isolated she might as well have been on another planet. The progressive withdrawal accelerated until she was completely alone in her apartment, cut off from everyone. In August 1961, she was found dead. She'd been there for days, only 36 years old. No one had noticed she was gone. No one had checked on her. Her last years were so quiet. No one noticed she was missing. Our next star's torment would last decades. The forgotten talent, Elizabeth Hartman. Elizabeth Hartman didn't just disappear from Hollywood. She disappeared from life itself while hardly anyone noticed. In 1965, at just 22 years old, Hartman delivered a performance that should have guaranteed her place in Hollywood history. Her role in A Patch of Blue, playing a blind girl who falls in love with Sidney Poitier's character, earned her an Academy Award nomination. The sensitivity, the emotional depth, the authenticity she brought demonstrated rare talent. This should have been the beginning of something extraordinary. Instead, it marked the peak of a career that would slowly collapse under the weight of mental illness. Hartman battled severe depression for decades, making navigating Hollywood's instability nearly impossible. The same sensitivity that made her performances so authentic became a liability in an industry demanding constant resilience. Her appearances became increasingly sporadic, despite continuing quality when she did work. The gaps between roles grew longer, as her condition made maintaining consistent professional presence harder. By the 1980s, she'd withdrawn so completely that even people in the industry had no idea where she was. In 1987, at 45 years old, Elizabeth Hartman ended her own life. She jumped from her fifth-floor apartment window. Few even knew she was still alive. Hollywood forgot her long before she left, but our next star was destroyed by the industry itself. The scapegoated starlet, Lila Leeds. Lila Leeds didn't just disappear from Hollywood. She was deliberately erased while her male co-offender flourished. In 1948, Leeds was arrested alongside Robert Mitchum at the same party for the same crime. Marijuana possession. Same night, same circumstances, same charges, same potential consequences. What happened next exposed Hollywood's brutal double standard. Mitchum's career barely suffered. His studio immediately rallied around him, crafting a careful redemption narrative and managing publicity to minimize damage. He served a brief sentence, returned to work, and continued his ascent to legendary status. The industry protected its investment, providing support and second chances. Leeds received the exact opposite treatment. Her contract was terminated within days. Every pending role reassigned to other actresses. The studio's support that might have cushioned her fall never materialized. She was radioactive, untouchable, finished. After the arrest, Leeds disappeared into low-budget B-movies for a brief time before vanishing from screens entirely. Many people assumed she had died. The reality was somehow worse. She lived until 1999 in complete obscurity. 5 more decades of life that generated zero media coverage, zero public awareness. While Mitchum's career thrived and his legend grew, Leeds simply ceased to exist. She took the fall while he walked free. Our next star fell from even greater heights. The fallen musical star, Betty Hutton. Betty Hutton didn't just leave Hollywood. She plummeted from its highest peak into total anonymity. Throughout the 1940s, Hutton was one of the biggest musical stars in the world. Her explosive energy and powerhouse performances in films like Annie Get Your Gun and The Greatest Show on Earth made her one of Paramount's most valuable properties. She commanded top billing and massive salaries. Then everything collapsed. The studio system that had built her up began crumbling in the 1950s. Combined with personal struggles and a devastating nervous breakdown, Hutton's career didn't just decline, it disintegrated. The roles dried up, the phone stopped ringing, and the industry that had once courted her moved on. But what happened next was even more shocking. Hutton didn't retire to visible luxury. She disappeared so completely that for years, people had no idea where she was. Eventually, the truth emerged. Betty Hutton, who had sung to millions and commanded Hollywood's biggest stages, was teaching at a Catholic university in Rhode Island, living under a different name, working in complete anonymity. The journey from international superstardom to anonymous classroom represented one of the most dramatic falls in entertainment history. She sang to millions, then vanished. Our next star was too powerful to fit in. The woman ahead of her time, Tura Satana. Tura Satana didn't just leave Hollywood. Hollywood never knew what to do with her in the first place. In 1965, Satana created one of exploitation cinema's most iconic performances in Faster, Pussycat Kill Kill. Her portrayal of Varla was unlike anything audiences had seen. Commanding physical presence, unapologetic sexuality, and aggressive agency that directly contradicted everything the era expected from women on screen. But Satana's distinctiveness became her curse. Her mixed ethnic background, Japanese, Filipino, Native American, and Scots-Irish, made her impossible to categorize in an industry that demanded simple racial boxes. More damaging was her refusal to compromise. Satana turned down roles that diminished her characteristic power or played into demeaning stereotypes. She wouldn't play the game Hollywood wanted. The result was near-total erasure. After her brief moment of cult recognition, Satana disappeared from screens for decades. The industry had no space for a woman that powerful, that uncompromising. She retreated into private life, largely forgotten until later generations rediscovered Faster, Pussycat, and recognized its feminist significance. Conventions eventually brought her back to public visibility, but only after the culture had caught up. She was too powerful, so they erased her. But our final star was destroyed by someone she trusted. The partnership casualty, Sondra Locke. Sondra Locke didn't just disappear from Hollywood. She was systematically erased by one of its most powerful figures. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, Locke was Clint Eastwood's longtime partner and frequent co-star. She appeared alongside him in multiple successful films, their professional collaboration intertwined with their personal relationship. But Locke had ambitions beyond acting. She wanted to direct. Then the relationship ended, and that's when everything changed. According to Locke's lawsuit, Eastwood didn't just break up with her. He allegedly interfered with her career in ways that made continuing in Hollywood nearly impossible. Claims of systematic blackballing from major studios, allegations of closed-door deals that shut her out of opportunities. Directing opportunities were particularly vulnerable to this sabotage. The development process depends heavily on producer relationships and studio connections, the exact networks where informal pressure can quietly eliminate projects. For an aspiring female director already facing massive obstacles, this alleged interference was career annihilation. Locke eventually sued, bringing these allegations into public view. But the damage was done. She didn't just fade from visibility. She was actively pushed out, her opportunities systematically eliminated by someone with the power to make her radioactive. Her story reveals how Hollywood protects powerful men while making inconvenient women disappear. 11 stars. 11 different disappearances. Some chose to walk away, trading fame for faith or privacy. Others were pushed, blackballed, or systematically erased by an industry that decided they were no longer profitable. and some met fates so dark that Hollywood simply pretended they never existed. What unites these stories is how thoroughly they were forgotten. These weren't minor players. These were recognized faces, Oscar nominees, major stars who commanded audiences. Yet they slipped from public consciousness with shocking speed, erased so completely that most people never knew what became of them. The patterns are impossible to ignore. Gender played a massive role in who got second chances and who got destroyed. Mental health struggles were met with abandonment rather than support. Power protected some while crushing others for identical behavior. Hollywood's memory machine proved equally efficient at erasing legends as creating them. Fame doesn't guarantee you'll be remembered. Sometimes the brightest stars leave the darkest shadows. These 11 vanishing acts remind us that behind every classic film, there was a real person. And sometimes those people disappeared so completely that even their absence went unnoticed.